All right, welcome back, everybody. We are now going to talk to someone who was very close to winning last time, says she's going to go for it again. We have a former broadcaster. She's very comfortable in this office and in this space. Janelle Stelson, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. This is kind of where it all started for me here and across the street, so happy to be here.
I know. All right, so as a journalist, you know my first question. What is it?
What's your name?
Well, no, beyond that, it's why run again, right? You know, you were close last time. What did you learn from last time that's going to make you a better candidate this time, maybe?
I learned that the key is still listening. That people want you to hear what they're concerned about, their issues, and what they're struggling with. You know, if they're having trouble affording groceries or a roof over their heads or their medicine. These are all very basic things. And I will say for me and for them, they're sick and tired of not being truly represented in Washington. And the fact that Washington is so broken, including Scott Perry, that their concerns they do not feel are being heard or attended to.
What's different this time? How can you get those 5,000 more votes that you didn't get last time?
I think the story just keeps getting worse. He was the deciding vote on this bill that's going to add $3.3 trillion in new debt to Americans. You know, it's basically mortgaging our children's future. It's going to slash health benefits for millions of Americans, and roughly about 20,000 right here in central Pennsylvania, who he claims to represent. He pretends to represent, but he's not actually doing anything that helps us. He's only voting to hurt us. Going to cut food assistance. We'll lose about more than a million jobs. These are all things that are really important. And in some cases, the Medicaid cuts, people have been telling me just terrible stories about how devastating these cuts are going to be to their families, and in some cases probably deadly. We're going to see hospitals have to shut down. Governor Shapiro has been talking about that a little bit.
Right.
You know, we're going to see more extreme shortages.
So you're saying, if all those things happen, it'll be the atmosphere that's different this time than the last 6 or 7 times that would put you over the top?
I think people are sick and tired of what's going on in Washington, and Scott Perry is a large part of that.
I talked to a lot of voters. When I mention your name, first thing they say is, did you work with her? Okay, I say, no, almost, not really. Second thing they say is, even their supporters.
Worked with your wife.
Well, that's true. But even the supporters of yours say, does she live in the district? And so I'll ask you again, do you live in the district?
I do. I live in Cumberland County. This is the third time I've lived in Cumberland County. I lived in Camp Hill and New Cumberland, had 3 places in Harrisburg, 1 in Susquehanna Township. Know this area like the back of my hand after covering it as a journalist for 38 years.
Right. But last time you never moved, and maybe it was a few people that didn't like that, and you'd taken away that reason for them not to vote for you this time.
Yeah, listen, any distraction where we're not talking about how rotten Scott Perry's voting record is a distraction.
So let's say you win and the Democrats, get control of the House going into 2026. What's the first thing you guys want to do?
Work on affordability. That's the basis of everything. Until people actually have their houses in order, a good place to live, food on the table, paying for their medicine, that kind of thing, and good jobs. I just feel like right now, working class Americans, families are working harder than ever. If you have a good job or 2 or 3, you're still falling further behind. The math just isn't adding up, and we have to take care of these things before we do anything else.
You'll still be dealing with a Trump presidency at that point. Where can there still be some compromise to get to that point? Or is it just fight, and we'll do the best we can, and if nothing happens, nothing happens?
I always say fight for what is right. I mean, the job title is representative. You want to represent this area. You want to take votes that help us, not hurt us. You know, the infrastructure plan that was passed last time, big deal. I-81, so many potholes on it that are axle benders. There's a lot. Our farmers, are struggling, businesses, These tax tariffs that Scott Perry fully supports have been a big problem. We're losing some jobs because of it. We just had the plant in Steelton shut down, one of the oldest steel plants in the entire country. Nearly 600 jobs lost. Where was Scott Perry during all of that? So there is an awful lot to be attended to. He's in his 13th year in Congress, his 7th term, and what's he done for us? Bupkis.
But the people keep voting for him. How can you explain that? You say that he's done nothing in 12 years, but they've had 6 different times to vote him out, and they never did.
Well, if you want to get really technical, it is a +5 Republican district, so it's heavily Republican anyway. Yep. Josh Shapiro won this district by 12 points, though. He will be at the top of the ticket in 2026, and hopefully we'll have tailwinds instead of headwinds like last time.
Sometimes I know that people don't like some of these topics, but they work for Republicans. So let's see, when it comes back at you, what are you going to say? Transgender sports participation. 75% of the country says they don't want transgender athletes in female sports. If that comes up to you, what would you say?
I think that's something much like Scott Perry getting involved in when, how, if you're going to start a family by banning abortions and, basically saying that he knows better than people and their families and their doctors do. He's the one who's going to tell you how to conduct yourself in terms of women's rights. That's a problem, and I feel the same way about that. It's something that families and their doctors and school boards need to be involved in. I don't think government, I don't think Scott Perry and these career politicians have any business.
Okay, so it's district by district making that decision.
I think it's families and it's school districts.
Okay. You went through it last time. You decided to come back. Was it an easy decision to say, okay, I want to go through this ringer again? Because it's probably highly emotional. That night, you probably at one point felt pretty good about how it was going to go. It didn't turn your way, and yet you're coming back for it again.
Yes, I did at one point, Joel.
I saw you dancing. I mean,
and then you wake up and it's a whole different world.
Yeah.
I would just say for me, it's all about Scott Perry. The story just keeps getting worse. The fact that he has taken extreme votes, I'm surprised he even calls himself a Republican anymore, the way he votes against the entire congressional delegation. But, apart from that, it's still, January 6th still resonates with a lot of people, according to what they tell me. He was so deeply involved. He had his cell phone confiscated by the FBI, and he asked for a presidential pardon. And I don't think you do that if you haven't done anything wrong.
Okay, well, some of these things sound familiar. Some things may be different. Either way, it was super close last time. So we'll see what happens this time. And of course, you got to win the primary as well. So, that happens. Thanks for being with us on Face the State. Good to see you.
My pleasure.
All right.
Thank you, Joel.
Yeah. So Representative Scott Perry's office responding to hearing that Stelson will enter the race again. A spokesperson says Janelle Stelson still a carpetbagger who can't vote for herself. Janelle Stelson still a racist who refused to apologize for disparaging Asian Americans. Stelson still supports raising the taxes of hardworking South Central Pennsylvanians by more than $2,000. I wonder what our political insiders think about all of this.